Hey, what's up everybody? Danny Lightning back with another video. Today I'm going to tell you why the Emax Tinyhawk should be your very first quadcopter. It's about the size of the palm of your hand, and this little guy is extremely durable. I put together some nice video clips of this flying, and I'll start that up in a minute. But first I want to talk about the durability. Alright, this frame is really nice and flexible, so when you hit stuff, this frame just flexes. That's why this doesn't break. The props don't fly off of this thing like they do on a lot of these other little quadcopters. The frame doesn't break. You know, a lot of these, the canopies, the frames, the props, all break easily, or the props fly off and you lose them. None of that's an issue with this one. Alright, I did a lot of research on these, and the little Emax Tinyhawk seems to be the most durable out of all of these, which means in the long run it's going to cost you less money. So if you're brand new to the hobby, or if you're just someone who wants to fly around in like your yard or indoors, this little guy is perfect. Alright, I got the one that runs off of a 1-cell battery, so it has a little less power. If you get the Tinyhawk S, it'll run off 1-cell or 2-cell, and a 2-cell battery will give this thing much more power. But if you're flying around in tight spots or indoors, you don't need the 2-cell. This one is perfect for the type of flying I'm doing, and it's very, very, very hard to break. Alright, this will fly almost as good as one of the big quads. It'll do pretty much everything the big quads will do, almost as good. Alright, so let me start this video clip, and you can watch this fly as I talk about it a little more. So, as you're going to see right now, this thing will do rolls, it'll do flips, it'll do split-S maneuvers, and it does them all pretty well. I think the only time it has issues is when you come out of a dive. So if you're way up in the air and you're just diving towards the ground, don't pull out of it right before you hit the ground, because it gets a little prop wash and it kind of bobbles and wobbles a little bit and struggles to pull out of stuff at the last second. So make sure you give yourself a little more room. I think the 2-cell version would probably have a little bit easier time pulling out of dives, I would think. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't flown it, but 2-cell is always a little more powerful. So anyways, but this thing really flies like a larger aircraft. You don't even realize how small it is while you're flying it. It feels like something much, much bigger. I mean, it handles extremely well. It'll handle almost anything you throw at it. Like I said, it's not so great at the dives, but for everything else I've tried with it so far, it's awesome. You don't have to be too afraid to fly low to the ground, because, like I said, as long as you keep crashing into the grass, you're probably never going to break anything. I mean, if you fly into trees at full speed or smash into concrete at full speed, there you can see I crashed it. You know, I pick it up and it keeps on going. Here we're going to see it crash again. I pick it up and it keeps on going. I mean, the little thing is a tank, I'll tell you that. It's very, very good. It's great for learning to fly, or for anybody who really just wants to fly around in such a small space. I mean, you really can't beat this little guy. I mean, it's actually very, very enjoyable to fly. It's really inexpensive, and if you're trying to get into the hobby for as little money as possible, there's actually a ready-to-fly kit. You get this one right here for the 1-cell version. It comes with the controller, and it comes with a set of goggles for around 150. Actually, I've seen it for like 130, between 130 and 160 dollars, depending on where you buy it. I've seen it at some of these Chinese stores for really inexpensive. The only drawback to ordering from one of them is I guess it can take like several weeks for it to show up after you order it. But if you want to get it cheaper, there's a lot of stores where you can order this for dirt cheap, but it might take 3, 4, 5, or even 6 weeks to show up, I guess. I guess some of those Chinese stores are not very good about the shipping. Now, one nice thing about this is it has the closed props, so the props are not exposed. If you hit somebody or something with this, chances are it's not going to hurt them or damage any property. It's extremely lightweight. As you can see, I just flew that thing right over my shoulder. With a larger quad with the exposed props, I would never do something like that, because the bigger props will chop you up. They will damage things. You can really hurt somebody bad with one of these things. With this little guy, you can fly it almost anywhere because it's extremely safe. And plus, it's still lightweight. I mean, you could probably fly this thing full speed into somebody's face, and they would go, "Ow, that sucked," and kind of laugh about it. Maybe unless you hit them in the eye or something. Please don't try that. Don't try that, okay? I'm just saying, more than likely, this thing goes around 35, maybe 40 miles per hour tops. So even if you blast it into somebody's face, I mean, it weighs next to nothing. It would sting a little bit, but as long as you didn't get somebody in the eye, I don't think it would hurt them. It may or may not break a house window if you fly into it at full speed. I'm not 100% sure, but just you're not going to do much damage to anything. Maybe if you hit someone in the eye, it's going to hurt them. Maybe if you hit somebody's window, you're going to break the window. But for the most part, it's not going to damage or hurt anything. At least not very bad like some of the bigger ones. So this is definitely great for anybody who really just wants to get into flying. I mean, the 2-cell version would be awesome, but I don't feel that I need 2 cells for what I do. I like to fly it around in tight little spaces. I like to fly low to the ground. I like to just, have fun with this little guy. I don't fly in a big area, so I don't need all the power. I'm very, very happy with this little thing. I mean, that's the whole reason that I was happy to get this, because I'm just like, oh man, this is something I can fly around in my yard. Maybe in the winter I can fly it around in the house. It's just an excellent overall little quad. I mean, it's amazing, to tell you the truth. You just can't beat this thing. So, if you're looking to get into flying quadcopters, multi-rotors, drones, whatever you want to call it, definitely take a good look at the Tinyhawk or the Tinyhawk S as your first one. There's also a newer version called the Tinyhawk Freestyle, but it's a little bit bigger than this. It's more like a full-size quad. It's got a lot more power. It gets extremely good flight time. This one might get 2.5 to 3.5 minutes of flight time depending on what batteries you're using. So the flight time's the only downfall on this, in my opinion. It could get a little bit better flight time. But the Tinyhawk Freestyle is not something you're going to want to fly around people. It's probably gonna damage stuff if you hit it. It's got the open prop, so if you hit a person with it, it might cut you up a little bit, because those props are spinning at I don't even know how many thousand RPMs, which is revolutions per minute. Those little props are like spinning razor blades. So if you hit a person or something with those props spinning at full speed, you may well hurt somebody. But if you're not a beginner and you're not worried about smashing into somebody or something, you might want to check out the Tinyhawk Freestyle. If you're just starting out, check out this little Tinyhawk. I would love to have the Tinyhawk Freestyle, but I can guarantee you it's not going to have the durability that this thing does. When you crash the Tinyhawk Freestyle, you are going to break props. I've seen people tear the antennas off when they crash. To where this guy, you're pretty much guaranteed not to break much of anything. So, between the fact that this flies extremely well and it's crazy durable is the main reasons why you should get this little guy. So overall, I give this thing about a 9 out of 10. If it just handle dives a little better, I would give it a 10 out of 10, but this is an amazing little machine, alright? So that pretty much wraps this up, but that's why the Tinyhawk should be your you know what? Let me show you guys. Let me plug this into the computer really quick too. When you first get this, it's a little bit sluggish. I'll show you what I did to mine. I only fly in Acro mode, so I am in the mode where I have full control over it. Some people like to do this Project Mockingbird settings. Personally, I do not like Project Mockingbird one bit. And for some reason, it's not connecting. Let me see what happened here. I didn't have the connector in there right. There we go. Let's connect. I'll show you what I changed on mine. If I go to PID tuning, alright, I turned this on and I turned this on. The I-team rotation and the VBAT PID compensation, I turned those two things on. I changed all my rates up to 1.0. Okay, for Acro mode, all my rates are at 1.5. That makes, when you start them, I think they're at 0.60 or 0.70, and the sticks felt really sluggish to me. So the first couple days I flown around with the stock settings. Then I changed my rates to 1.50. Now you have your super rates, which will make it flip and roll a little faster. I think my flip and roll is a little too fast, so I'm actually going to turn these down. So I just changed my super rates. Let me turn off my webcam for a second. And now I'm just going to hit the little save button, and bam, now my rates are changed. But proportional, integral, derivative, feed forward, max veil degrees, all of those I leave at the stock settings. I like the way those fly at the stock settings, and I take all the expo out of it. So I change my rates, my super rates, my expo, and then I turn on those two little things right there, and everything else I think I've left stock. I've tried the Project Mockingbird settings, but I don't like it. I didn't like the Project Mockingbird settings. I don't know, it just didn't seem to fly right to me. The other thing is they try and add some mixing in, which means you're like when they want to add your yaw and your roll so it works together on one stick. So when you move your yaw stick, it's also going to affect the roll, and that's going to teach you some really bad habits. If you do go for Project Mockingbird, don't use the mixing type settings where they mix your yaw and your roll together, because once you start flying in Acro mode and you want to learn to do tricks and stuff, that's really going to screw you up. Maybe for indoor when you're in the angle mode settings, maybe the yaw and roll is fine, but it's going to teach you bad habits. You want to have full control over your quad the proper way. You don't want to add any type of mixing, okay? It's actually there's Beta Flight 4.0. There's a Project Mockingbird for that. This comes stock with like 3.5.2 or something like that. That's what I'm using. But there's a setting in here called camera angle, and on Tiny, I don't know why camera angle does the mixing where it makes your yaw and your roll work together at the same time off of one stick movement. I don't know why it's called camera angle, but you're going to see a camera angle adjustment in the Project Mockingbird version 3. Don't do that. Leave that at 0, because when you change that camera angle adjustment, it puts mixing in. And in my opinion, that's one of the worst things you can do, because it is going to teach you some really bad habits. As far as anything else in here, I don't think I've changed anything except for my rates, my super rates, and I turned on those two things. When I turn on these two switches right here, it just feels like it flies a lot more locked in. Alright, so I think that pretty much sums this up, so I will talk to you guys later. Alright, see ya.